Behind me is the Waverly Country Club, but I'm not really there. I don't think I've ever been on the property. It goes between Southeast 17th Avenue and the Willamette River, in between Selwood to the north and the town of Milwaukie to the south. And along it, Southeast 17th has just constructed a new Southeast 17th Avenue multi-use path that connects the Springwater Corridor to Milwaukie and the trolley trail. And why the street and why the trail is there has always been really curious to me. So I went to go find out the story. And I wound up where I often do at a cemetery. This is the Milwaukie Pioneer Cemetery. And I'm going to tell you a story about these folks. William Meek, his family. These folks behind here, Henderson Llewellyn, and his brother, Seth Llewellyn, and his wife Sophronia and their family. And their story begins at the Underground Railroad, then over the Oregon Trail. The California Gold Rush will develop the Bing Cherry, create a free love colony in 1859 Honduras, travel the interurban trolley system, make progress on voting rights, and ride the Orange Max. Come on, let me show you my real Portland. It's always been home, I've always been here, I've always got time for one more beer, so pull up your beer and pull up a chair and strike up the band, it's my real Portland. I've always wanted my own theme song. 18 miles south of the Columbia on the Willamette River, Johnson and Kellogg Creeks create an attractive and lucrative spot for life in the late 1840s. This is downtown Milwaukie. The riverfront park is complete now with bike paths and a boat launch. Not as beautiful as the grounds of Waverly Country Club to the north that's now taking up the middle of your screen. Now, right on Milwaukie Bay, the Oregon Donation Land Claim Act made land available for white men to settle. And here, access to the water was great for milling flour and lumber, and was also a great place to establish a fruit tree nursery. So William Meek and Henderson Llewellyn, along with his son Alfred and his brother Seth, took up land claims and went into business together. Now, this map of land claims in the area shows Lot Whitcomb's claim on Milwaukie Bay, with William Meek and Henderson Llewellyn as neighbors to the north. Henderson Llewellyn's son, Alfred's claim, is across from what is here called Sherry Ross's Island. And up at the top of this map is James and Elizabeth Stevens, who will be featured in an upcoming video on Lone Fir Cemetery. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Henderson Llewellyn's story actually begins over here in Randolph County, North Carolina, where his dad, slave owner and fruit orchard owner Meshach Llewellyn, moved to Indiana on purpose to free his slaves in a free state, teaching his sons to be fierce abolitionists. In 1838, Henderson moved his young family to Salem, Iowa, due to free land under the Black Hawk Act. His homestead here was 25 miles from the Missouri border, becoming an important stop along the Underground Railroad, and his home and legacy are preserved here now as a museum. In 1847, Henderson uprooted his life again when he packed up his family and 700 saplings and headed west on the Oregon Trail. In a few years, Seth and Alfred Llewellyn would join Henderson in laying claims nearby. Henderson's journey on the Oregon Trail was rough. When fellow travelers thought he was nuts for putting a huge load, 700 saplings, on his cattle wagons, Alfred Llewellyn recalled, "The last time I recollect anyone trying to discourage him about the nursery wagon, Father's answer was such an emphatic no that he was allowed to follow his own course after that." Over the next 6 years, Henderson and business partner William Meek made a solid business as the population boomed. Fresh fruit was rare, and they hit the big time. Llewellyn and Meek split their property equally north and south along a line that will eventually be Milwaukie 17th Avenue. Henderson got bored quick and wanted a new challenge. He told his friend John Garretson, "It makes no difference how much a man has around him. If he is not satisfied, he will go off and leave it." So he and his friend William Meek sold their shares in the nursery and set off for the Bay Area in 1853. San Francisco was growing up and families from America were just starting to settle there. Great for Quaker-based vegetarian lifestyle when you grow fruit for a living. And here, Henderson and Meeks started nurseries in San Lorenzo, California, where this intersection still bears their name and the Meek Mansion is just over by a few blocks. In 1859, he left his now fourth wife, sold his land to the governor of California, and took off with his 2 sons and 25 others to form the Harmonial Brotherhood, a free love society of vegetarians in San Lorenzo, Honduras. By late 1860, their voyage back was shipwrecked at Mazatlan, the society a total failure. Henderson returned to California, where he died in 1878 in an orchard fire. Meanwhile, his brother Seth had become the head of the Milwaukie nurseries. Seth employed Chinese workers, skilled fruit tree workers, to work the nursery in Milwaukie. Ah Bing, a Chinese man, was the crew leader for 30 other Chinese workers on the Llewellyn orchards. Together, Seth and Bing created the Black Republican cherry, Republicans being the party of abolitionists, and then the Bing cherry named after Bing. But labor tensions flared with Chinese labor in the market. Riots in Portland and Seattle in the 1880s made life unsafe for the Chinese. Once again, the Llewellyn family finds themselves giving protection for racial minorities. Seth's stepdaughter, Frances, remembers that during the Chinese riots in Washington and Oregon, Seth had Bing and the other Chinamen live in our home. Columbia, a relic of American iconography representing freedom, is seen here giving sanctuary in the face of xenophobia. Sophronia Llewellyn, Seth's wife, who was as important in sheltering and caring for the Chinese workers, believed the government would and should respond to the crisis, saying good government being to us what religion is to most people. And in 1881, President Chester Arthur's racist and xenophobic administration created the first Chinese Exclusion Act, which made any immigration for Chinese illegal. William Wren, a sick drifter from Wisconsin, the Llewellyns take him in exchange for helping with running the family business. His progressive politics and Quaker religion appear to align with Seth and his wife Sophronia. In 1893, Alfred Llewellyn hands Wren a copy of Direct Legislation by the Citizenship, a small book based on Swiss politics that inspired Wren a passion to change laws in favor of all the people of Oregon. But he had little money. So Wren became a spiritualist medium and claimed to channel Seth's dead son Willie, who had died in 1879. Now situated as the family's spiritual guide and attorney, he could fund his political ambitions with Seth and Sophronia's willful donations, and bankrupts the business in the process. After Seth's death in 1896, Sophronia turned against Wren. She took him to bankruptcy court, claiming that Wren's exercise of his hypnotic powers as a trance medium led to the demise of the estate, which went from 480 acres to 22. In 1888, Bing would leave his 30 years of life in Milwaukie behind and return to China. Due to the Chinese Exclusion Acts, Bing was never allowed to return to his home in Milwaukie. Those racist acts not being repealed until World War II. 136 years later, the U.S. House of Representatives issued an apology for their racist and xenophobic act. By Seth's death in 1896, the Interurban Transit Company, PEPCO, had already been put into service, connecting towns across the region. Cars came into Milwaukie through Henderson and Meeks' property and connected south to Oregon City, which today is the Trolley Trail, and the Springwater Line, and then up north into Portland. The Milwaukie stop was one along 75 miles of track, and Crystal Lake Park, with a playground, bowling alley, ball field, and a dance hall, was within moments of the trolley stop in Milwaukie, just east of Seth's former orchards. You'd have passed by the remnants of the orchards to get there, and with no cars yet, biking was a pretty cool way to get around too. So, the Llewellyn story hasn't ended though. Sophronia's daughter, Seth's stepdaughter, Florence Olson Llewellyn Letting, had bought what was left of the family estate after the family bankruptcy, including a small home. When she died in 1961, Florence gave the city of Milwaukie her home. At the end of this walkway on Spring Creek sits Florence's home, now forever known as the Letting Library. Frances had become one of Oregon's first female attorneys, and in a kind of delicious vindication for her family, she earned a spot as one of the first female U.S. bankruptcy court referees. Now, if you want to step back in history and come here by Max on the Orange Line, you'll pass between Seth's old orchard property to the west and Crystal Lake Park to the east right before Harrison Street. Or you could ride your bike down the new 17th Avenue multi-use path. So wherever you find yourself in Portland, make it awesome, make it interesting, and make it your real Portland. I've been working on this video for a long time, and there's so many things I didn't even get to. But I'm going to drop some notes in the comments with links so that you can go find out more information. But you can also just give me a call and let's go out and have a beer and talk about everything I know about the Llewellyns. I'm Joseph Lyons, Realtor in Portland, Oregon. If you or someone you know is looking to buy or sell a home in Portland, please consider letting me help you with your real Portland.